The dust is beginning to settle after the BBI judgment at the appeal court. And therefore, it's a befitting time for me to bring in the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, having said something or two about Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Now, I urge President Uhuru Kenyatta to move to the Supreme Court because of the implication of this judgment. I know many other people will move to the Supreme Court, including the Attorney General, and indeed they must move to the Supreme Court. But I'm asking President Uhuru Kenyatta to bring his full force to bear on the presence at the Supreme Court, including assembling the best lawyers money can get, the best brains, the best legal minds, including bringing QCs from the UK, because the implication of this judgment will ring for many years to come. And as the president, the buck stops. If anything goes wrong, and I believe, honestly so, that if this judgment stands, many things will go wrong. Democracy as we know it in this country may collapse. The country as we know it may collapse. For that reason, I'm bringing in Uhuru Kenyatta, because he has to bring the full force required to win this battle at the Supreme Court. As I say so, I've said already, people are going to appeal. The Attorney General must appeal for many reasons. For jurisprudence, for example. Is this good law? Certainly it's bad law. Is this a good judgment? Certainly it's a bad judgment. So he must appeal. He must appeal because the judges tell us you cannot amend the Kenyan Constitution. I laugh when I see some parliamentarians. I don't know what's wrong with them, including my friend Kioni. You are planning to do an IPPG to amend the Constitution, which the courts have said you cannot amend. All the articles in the Constitution are interrelated in a way. If you read this judgment, none can be touched. So the Attorney General must appeal, because then this belongs to the people of Kenya. There are fundamental issues why he must appeal also. He must appeal because the question is simple. Do we follow the law? Do we follow the Constitution in our affairs, or do we go outside the Constitution? That is the question I wanted Orengo to concentrate on in the Supreme Court, in the appeal court. He didn't. Only Githu Muigai tried. They should just have raised that issue and none at all. Whether the Kenyan people, in their pursuit to amend their constitution, will have to step outside the Constitution to do so or not. The judges in the High Court, affirmed by the judges in the appeal court, tell us you discard your constitution, then go outside the Constitution and try to amend your constitution. Look, even in simpler matters, where the text is clear, stay with the text. Before you wander in the world of spirits, the spirit of the law, the spirit of the law cannot apply where the law is clear in text, in black and white. You cannot. What are you looking for? The president shall serve for a maximum of 2 terms. This is clear in text. But if you went in the world of spirits, you could argue. You could say we did this because we are running away from Moi. Now that Moi is so far away from us, a guy can do 10 terms. You look here. It can't be academic. And while talking about academic, the judges of the appeal court, I work at the university. I may not be a senior professor, but I work at the university. And I know the journals, we interact with knowledge. It's dynamic. We play around with ideas. I invite the judges of the appeal court to read the postdoctoral written by Professor Mbote. It is about the place of norms and other societal and cultural considerations when you are rendering justice within the court. Supposing courts went in that direction, that's academic. A PhD is somebody's way of looking at an idea, using a perspective. That perspective of theory can change. Things can be overtaken. Courts are supposed to be stable. In the academy, the world of knowledge is a dynamic one with the paradigm shifts. So you cannot go into an academic journal, lift an article, get somebody's PhD, you cannot do that in court. For heaven's sake, you can't do that in court. So for that reason, the Attorney General must appeal. And there are also practical considerations. What happens to the IEBC if this judgment were to stand for pragmatic reasons? Then from the time the 4 commissioners resigned up to now, everything done is null and void, including people being elected in by-elections. Look, you cannot tell me policy is about verifying signature, which is a formality, and not about committing billions of Kenya money that IEBC is now doing, including in procuring services and goods and products. And the Attorney General must also occupy himself with this thinking. If the president continues to fund IEBC, he's doing so illegally. He's funding an illegal entity. The same civil society, the same judiciary will surcharge the president now or in the future. Why did you fund an IEBC that was defunct? So actually the president should stop funding IEBC. So look here. And the question of the election next year is tied to the IEBC, which is doing things now, and in the words, in the judgment, the IEBC is illegally constituted. So the AG must move to court, question the basic structure, question the explanation, the reasoning of Justice Tuyot. I choose this one of Justice Tuyot because it was very interesting. You argue about basic structure. You argue about changing the constitution. But then you are talking about a new constitution. This is not a new constitution. This is an amendment. We may argue at the extent of the amendment, but it is an amendment. It's nothing else. You can go to the dictionary, any dictionary, but it's an amendment. It's not removing a constitution like we did in 2010. So your arguments about a new constitution cannot hold when you're talking about an amendment, however extensive that amendment may be. So if the judges love this country, what they would have told us, a good judge, a good court, a good bench applies the law as it is. Not as it should be. Because for everything in this world, there is what it is and what it should be. What it should be, we will all desire that it be this. But the reality would be, it is this. Good judges apply the law as it is. Not as it should be. Now, if there are good judges, therefore, they will tell you, look here, Kenyans, we are tied to the law. Even when you put safeguards in this law, in 251, Article 251, they are not enough to spare our constitution from being mutilated. And therefore, quickly move in the future to make amendments that ring-fence certain chapters, certain provisions, that outlaw, make it impossible to come up with an omnibus amendment to the Constitution, carrying all manner of articles. That is futuristic. In many of the things I'm arguing in the courts, it is about desirable things, but they are not covered in the Constitution. Kenya is not collapsing tomorrow. Kenya is there. We will make those amendments, including Article 2, is it 161, to say the Judicial Service Commission shall appoint the judges, not the president. We can make that provision in the Constitution. What is the hurry for? So the judges don't love Kenya. And for that reason, they should not come in court. Read emotionally charged judgments. The court cannot be turned into a public gallery where people compete in how best they can speak, how emotionally charged their speeches can be, with all manner of phrases. That is not a court. A court is a stable institution where people must be sober. Judges are supposed to be very sober. So that it's a hallowed institution, so that they will respect their decisions. But we cannot have a court where judges are fuming at the mouth as they throw all manner of words and even jabs and jeers at counsel. We cannot have that. I love this country, and I'm asking the judiciary, and I've done so. Finally, I go to the president. president must move to the Supreme Court with the best judges, because to leave this judgment is to abdicate his responsibility. If he doesn't bring his full force to bear in the Supreme Court, history will bring full force to bear on him, that this country collapsed, or at least the journey to the collapse began during his reign. It is not the Roman soldiers who traveled hundreds of miles to conquest that created the Roman Empire, the great Roman Empire, using the most crude means of transport. No, it's Julius Caesar. It's not the millions, tens of millions of Chinese who marched to Beijing. It's Mao Zedong who is recorded in history. It is not the many peasants who died in Kenya. No, it's Jomo Kenyatta. It's always the leader. And that's why history places responsibility on leaders to ensure that at all times the country remains stable. Now, why am I saying this? If we leave this judgment the way it is, we are setting the judiciary against the executive. The executive will be joined by the legislature, like in India. The judiciary will be joined, as indeed they are in my own thinking, with the civil society. This conflict between judiciary and civil society on one hand, and the parliament and the executive on the other, will not be good for this country. It will not be good for this country. And therefore, the president must move in to ensure that this judgment is set aside, and in the process, the pronouncement from the Supreme Court will give Kenyans a right to amend their constitution. Other people should come and ring fence other chapters and provisions so that this thing is not mutilated. And so that, in my thinking, for President Uhuru Kenyatta, you should move to court to put the civil society in their place. The civil society are people who want power. And yet, in a democratic society like ours, you get power to run the affairs of a country through an election. We have busybodies who cannot win even 10 votes in an election for MCA or be chair of a cattle dip. They want to sneak power through the back door, and they are finding willing allies and the people they are working with from the judiciary. The civil society will spell doom for this country, and they must be stopped. Because to tell me that the laws of this country shall no longer be made by parliament, but by the judiciary, is dangerous for the country. You cannot know this conflict, where it can end the country to. This is a third world country. Who tells you every president will be as good as Uhuru Kenyatta? If he's good, according to me, he's good. You could get some president who will call the bluff. And already there's evidence of that. Uhuru is sitting in his breast pocket. There is an advisory from Justice Maraga to dissolve parliament. Parliament is still there. There are many things the judiciary has said Uhuru has not done. Now, you want to tell me that parliament shall no longer make laws in this country. It shall be made by the judiciary. That cannot work. And that competition between civil society and judiciary on the hand, the president and his parliament on the other hand, in a third world country, take it from me, I mean very good. I hope the judges also mean good for this country. I hope the president means good for this. I believe they all mean good for this country, but they need to be informed that it's not enough to think you feel good for the country. You must move. And that movement will take Uhuru Kenyatta to the Supreme Court to set aside this judgment, because we cannot surrender our sovereign to the courts, to the civil society. We can't. You may mean good when you are a judge, but have you looked at the practical considerations, including the dangers inherent in your judgment? How good are you as a judiciary as you talk about these changes? When thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Kenyans are languishing in remand prison, their cases have been there, some for 20 years. I have a case of 1996. I have a current one from 2018 for an accident. I was in court yesterday. Adjournment after adjournment for no reasons. Are you considering that? Are the judges in love with Kenyans whom they supposedly defend through these judgments, when they see millions of Kenyan children walking barefoot to school in tattered rags, in the worst of weather, a good number of them with jiggers in their toes? Why? because people have stolen money and the judiciary has not been able to help Kenyans deal with the thieves? Is the judiciary really mindful of Kenyans? They love Wanjiko. When we allow crooks from Goldenberg, Anglo Leasing, KEMSA, anything, NYS, Maze, all these crooks driving big vehicles, living in big places, going, if they ever go to court, they are just scot-free. You argue it's poor persecution, it's ODPP. Where did the judiciary this time get the energy to be proactive in the court? Ask questions, including about a dog, as if the president is bothered about a dog. That's part of the president's infrastructure. And that's some of the reasons I'm saying you cannot pretend to love this country when people have their loved ones dying, as we know, selling every little parcel of land, the little you have, to take somebody to hospital. Yet there's enough money to give free health care in this country. The money is stolen by Kenyans who are in leadership in this country. Yet the judiciary doesn't help us to rein in these thieves, and they say they love us. Surely, is that love? You clear crooks, non-criminals to run for office. Look here, we are where we are because you cleared Uhuru and Raila to run when they were at the ICC. You gave all manner of reasons, as if criminal, the threshold for criminal issues is the same for integrity issues. I agree with Mumbingogi. That's the only activism I can buy into. That the threshold for criminal capability is not the same on matters of integrity and moral issues and values. So the judiciary is a good judiciary. We love you. You are doing a splendid job. But you must balance things. And you must not allow yourself to be influenced by the civil society. I may be wrong. And I wish I'm wrong. But that's the perception some people have. And there are many people. So, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta moved to the Supreme Court with sufficient force. You are not wanting or lacking in resources. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, move to the Supreme Court. Get us the kind of lawyers who got you out of ICC. Somebody like KQC. Bring them here. We must set aside this judgment because it spells doom for this country.